even though we all love Sydney Sweeney. Her latest movie wasn't as immaculate as the title would suggest. With this latest entry in a long line of horror movies about nuns and churches, this one sadly had us losing our faith, being carried by that sweet Sweeney cloud. They clearly forgot to make it even a little scary. But that does not hold us back from looking into what this baby drama movie is all about. So let's jump straight into the breakdown and explain that ending. Sister Mary prays to make it through the night as she sneaks into her superior's bedroom to steal the keys to the convent. But her escape does not go unnoticed. As she is struggling to find the right key to open the front gate, 4 hooded figures close in on her. She forces herself through a tiny opening in the gate, but is too late. A hooded figure grabs her leg and snaps it. A little later, she wakes up and lights a match. She has been buried alive. Sadly, this Mary couldn't rise from her grave. Now the movie fast forwards to the young, naive sister Cecilia, who is of course inspired by the biblical figure Cecilia, who is one of the famous virgin martyrs who pledged her life to Christ as his bride. A local church in Italy has invited her over from America to join their convent, to fill a position that quite recently mysteriously freed up. She feels it as if she is answering God's calling. So she makes her way to the beautiful countryside, where she enters the quite impressive and slightly shady-looking grounds of the convent. The Reverend Mother gives Cecilia a warm welcome, or Cecilia believes it is warm because Italian sounds like gibberish to the American nun. Luckily, Sister Isabel is there to translate all the mother's graceful words in a sarcastic and condescending tone. Clearly jealous of the newcomer, she still has to stay polite as she shows her the way to her room. While traversing the convent, Isabel fills Cecilia in on the job description. She has been hired to fulfill terminal care on the older penguins. She also spills the beans on some forbidden catacombs, where she should definitely not go. At Cecilia's room, Isabel shows some tough love and tells Cecilia this life is no joke, and she should go back home while she is not sworn into the sisterhood yet. It starts to sound more like a warning, but Sister Cecilia declines her offer to get the heck out of Dodge. While blessing the toilet, Gwen rushes into the bathroom with no regards for privacy. She needed a spot to smoke some of the devil's lettuce. She fishes for Cecilia's backstory, who came from a small parish in Michigan. It closed down due to low attendance rates, which hit her hard because she thought of them as her family. Lucky for her, Father Sal Tedeschi found her and invited her to join them here in Italy. Gwen smells a pattern because Father Tedeschi likes bringing in broken toys. He likes to collect loonies and runaways. Cecilia asks which one Gwen is, and she responds with both. That evening, it's time for Cecilia's ceremony to make her an official member of their convent. She meets with the cardinal and Father Tedeschi, who perform the holy ritual. They give her a rosary and ask her to make the vow to live her life by their ideals. She makes a vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience. She gladly signs her life away, and to seal the deal she has to suck on the cardinal's ring for a bit. To celebrate, there is a dinner at her honor set out on a themed table. Cecilia has a little sidebar with Sal because she is worried that she might not feel at home here in Italy straight away. Tedeschi tells her that he certainly did not feel at home when he arrived. He tells Cecilia that he was a scientist for over 20 years, but felt like he did not understand the world any better after all that time, which to my knowledge would just mean he was slacking off. But okay, he believes that after all those years, God showed him the way, and that's why he is here. He asks Cecilia why she is here, and she tells him that as a child, she would always walk over a frozen river. No matter how cold it was outside, she would take her gloves off and put her hands on the ice until she lost feeling, until one day the ice breaks, and she fell in, and she died for 7 minutes. Miraculously, she survived, and she believes it was God who had greater plans for her. Later that night, Cecilia freshens up in the bathroom, but hears a strange music in the distance. So she follows the ominous chanting all the way to the chapel, where she finds somebody lying face down on the cold floor. Cecilia asks if the person is okay, and the creep turns around. It is one of the people in black that killed that girl in the beginning of the movie. Mother Superior snuck up onto her to scare the bejesus out of Cecilia. She shows her what this weird ritual is all about. They approach the altar where Mommy takes a rusty old nail out of a display. She tells Cecilia that this nail was one of the nails that was used to make a decoration out of our main man Jesus. She hands the nail over to Cecilia and tells her it's their job to suffer in his name. But while holding the carpenter's #1 tool, Cecilia for some reason becomes woozy and passes out. She wakes up in a confession stand and blames the booze for her unexplained fainting. But the father does not turn to her, and the room stretches before her eyes. Hands burst through the wall behind her and pull her backwards. She is now in a room on a gurney. The red-faced, black-cloaked creepazoids are there rubbing their slimy hands all over her face. One of them jabs a dagger into her belly, and she wakes up back in her room. In the corner of the room there is a woman breathing, as if she just ran a marathon. But when she turns on the light, the woman is gone. The next morning, they have a nun meeting, where the Mother Superior spouts some more gibberish that Cecilia can't understand. She divides the daily tasks, and Gwen and Cecilia have to join Isabel. What a bummer. She teaches them about patient feces, folding laundry, and sacrificing chickens for dinner time. Cecilia refuses to chop up a chicken, but the other chores are certainly within her wheelhouse. Isabel gives her a death stare because for some reason they will never be besties. But that night, a nun sneaks up to Cecilia with a pair of scissors and cuts off a lock of her hair while mumbling something in Italian, which translates to, "Saints of us all adore you." Cecilia assumes this granny is just cuckoo and takes her back to her bed. But when she inspects her feet, because that's a normal thing to do, Cecilia finds scars that resemble crosses that look like they were burned under the soles of her feet. The next scene is a bath scene, because when you have Sweeney, you need a bath scene. Cecilia tells Gwen about the burn marks under the feet of the granny that scissored her last night. Gwen tells her that this place is not exactly what she thought it would be either, but at least it's better than where she came from. Gwen makes a bad joke, and Cecilia starts to throw up, so she goes to the church's doctor to get a checkup. But while waiting for the results, she spots somebody outside walking through the laundry lines, and then a bird smashes into the window. As the bird gives its final breath, the Mother Superior comes to collect Cecilia to see the doctor. But in the room, the Cardinal, Sal Tedeschi, and the doctor are waiting for her. And the Cardinal is berating her about her vows, especially the vow of chastity. But Cecilia can assure them she did not have something on the side. The doctor does some tests to check out if she is still a virgin, and the results are in. She is indeed untouched. But here comes the kicker. She is with child. It's a holy miracle. And while Cecilia is shocked by her miracle, without doing the disappearing salami, the others marvel as they see it as a gift from God himself. Sal pushes the narrative by saying God saved her life for this purpose of immaculate conception. Yay, we used the movie title. While Cecilia is not happy with being the vessel for God's faith baby, they still put her in some ceremonial dress and parade her in front of the rest while they sing hymns in her name. Gwen looks worried and Isabel looks like she wanted to be the baby mama. As the pregnancy continues, she is enjoying all the perks of being pregnant, like puking, losing a tooth, which is actually a common thing for preggo women. So I didn't understand why they made a big thing out of it. But she does get that beautiful, thick, pregnant woman hair. But when she finally gets to relax in the bath, somebody pushes her under in an attempt to drown Cecilia. It's Isabel, the jealous B-word. Cecilia bites her to escape drowning, but Isabel takes her in a chokehold and shouts it was supposed to be me. C told you she was hunkering for that government baby fund. The other sisters come rushing into the room and pull Isabel off of her, and while they usher her away, she screams that they have to give her another chance. The doctor checks if the baby is okay, and luckily, the little bugger is just fine. But Cecilia mentions she is not fine with this entire shindig and wants to know what Isabel meant with what she said. Sal acts like he is suffering from some type of selective deafness and changes the subject to Isabel being a little cray-cray and that seeing Cecilia probably triggered something in her. He does agree that her behavior was maybe a little overboard and promises her this whole drowning thing will not happen again. Cecilia has some trust issues and tells the guys she would like to see a real doctor at the hospital. But Sal gaslights her into believing hospitals aren't safe because of faith and stuff. Cecilia walks the convent's courtyard and spots 2 of those red-faced, black-cloaked nuns. Then somebody falls off the roof and kisses the pavement really hard. It is Isabel. Maybe she tripped, or possibly she was yeeted off of the roof. During the funeral, Gwen tells Cecilia that she thinks there is something shady going on at this place and asks her how she could trust the baby inside of her. Cecilia answers that maybe God is behind this, but Gwen says God definitely does not have anything to do with this because it smells hella fishy. Tedeschi overhears the conversation and asks the girls what's up, but Gwen is done with their creepy crap and addresses the crowd. She asks them how they can just blindly believe in their leaders without any proof of how Cecilia got pregnant or Isabel died. Sounds a bit like religion in general. Sal and some church guards usher her away. If she wanted to overthrow the corrupt system, she probably should have chosen a different approach. That night, Cecilia has trouble sleeping. One of the chains that is holding up a painting snaps and reveals a hidden message behind it. It was written by Mary, the girl that died in the beginning of the movie. They repurposed the room, so the message leads Cecilia to a Bible verse saying that Satan himself often masquerades as an angel of light. As that is almost exactly what Gwen said. Cecilia goes to Gwen's room to tell her what she found, but Gwen's room is empty. She sneaks into Tedeschi's office and breaks into his file cabinet, where she finds her personal file. They have done quite the extensive background check on her. Sal clearly did not need to hear that story about her falling through the ice, and they also have files that look like they are her DNA records. But she is interrupted by sounds in the distance, so she decides to go and check it out. The sounds turn into painful screams as she comes closer to the room that is producing the noise. She peeks through the keyhole and sees Gwen and the red face peeps in a, for some situations, kinky-looking room. But right now, it's used as a place of torture. The punishment for speaking before her turn is that they cut out her tongue. Cecilia gets spooked and backs up into another lady that grabs her by the mouth and tells her to keep quiet. It's creepy, Scissor Granny, and she made a cute little hair doll. She tells Cecilia it's blessed and gives it to her. Cecilia asks her for help and tells her they have to leave, but Granny gets even scarier and tells her she will never leave here. Well, that's the final straw. Now, Cecilia really wants to get the heck out of there. The next morning, there is a loud screaming coming from Cecilia's room. The nuns and the father rush towards her and find her sitting in a puddle of blood around her birth-giving spot. They argue about taking her to the hospital, while Cecilia screams that she does not want to die. So, with no choice left, they carry her to the car and drive off. In the car, they discuss what to do if she were to die, but they don't have much choice but to keep the faith. Back at the convent, the Mother Superior is still crying over the bloody bed until she spots a feather under it. Under the bed, she finds the source of the blood. There is a mangled chicken that is sucked dry, just casually laying under her bed, and the mother realizes they have been duped. She immediately calls Father Tedeschi to tell him Cecilia is plotting to escape. Sal tells the driver to pull over. Cecilia jumps out and runs into the beautiful Italian nature as fast as an about 8 months pregnant woman probably can run. She doesn't get far. They drag her back to the convent, give us the Sweeney treatment by stripping her completely and putting her under the shower. While aggressively scrubbing away, she asks Cecilia what she has to say for herself, and she tells the mother that God will never forgive her. The mother gives her a good slap in the face. Then they tie her to a wheelchair. Sal reassures Cecilia that she is safe, which is clearly a bunch of bull doo-doo. She asks him what the hell they did to her, which gives him the perfect opportunity to do his villain speech. He puts on a glove and takes the Jesus nail out of the box. He explains that some just see an old nail, but others see it as proof of Jesus' sacrifice. They found blood and bone fragments on the nail, containing, of course, the DNA of our main man, Jebus. They believe that this is the key to resurrection, and Cecilia's DNA is a match or something. And of course, religious people assume any type of blood on a rusty nail has to be the blood of Jesus, because that is just logics. He wheels her downstairs into the catacombs to show Cecilia his genetic research, where he keeps his Jesus baby jars with all his failed experiments. And he has spent 20 years to find the perfect vessel for his experiments. Cecilia is horrified to discover that one of these little Jesus worms is inside of her. Sal corrects her by saying that Cecilia is their first success. He also explains to her that he left the field of science because his methods were a little unorthodox. Luckily for him, the church saw use for his research. She calls him out for trying to play God, but he disagrees because God wouldn't fail for like 20 years straight. Now, to make sure Cecilia does not run out on them again, he takes out a branding cross and makes a burn mark under her foot, just like the other lady had earlier in the movie. They lock her in her room, and after some screaming and crying and a couple of weeks of waiting, they shove her back into the confession box. Cecilia wants to know all about their plans. How long have they been following her? And what do they think will happen after that baby is born? Is he going to save the world, or is it like a horseman of the apocalypse type of deal? The pastor looks at her, and she tells him this is definitely not God's work. And he responds with some childish logic that if it's not his work, then he would have stopped it. A couple more weeks pass, and it's almost time for Cecilia to go into labor. Nuns are singing a song in her honor. The doctor announces to the Mother Superior that within the next couple of days, baby Jesus will have another resurrection. The doc leaves the room to grab some supplies, while the mother is drooling over the baby monitor. Cecilia picks up the heavy cross next to her bed and gets her first kill of the movie. She escapes the room and her water breaks. It's a movie, so there is way too much water for it to even look remotely realistic. But then she moves on to her second kill. She sneaks up on the cardinal who is enjoying the view and chokes him out with her rosary. She fights through the labor pains and goes to grab the nail. She then returns to Sal's lab and dumps flammable liquid all over the place. But when she turns around, Tedeschi enters the lab while she is holding a lighter. He tries to convince her that blowing up the place won't solve anything. If she dies, they'll just find another surrogate. The only way to break the cycle is to just give them their holy baby. Sal attempts to overpower her, but she manages to fight him off and lock him in the laboratory. He grabs her hair through the small window, but the lighting fluid seeps out under the door, and Cecilia lights the whole shebang. She watches as Sal is screaming inside the burning room until she hears the sound of a fire extinguisher. Cecilia is stopped in her tracks by the labor pains, but has to start moving again because Sal busts through the door. Cecilia runs off deeper into the dark catacomb labyrinth. She has no idea where she is going, as long as it's further away from the nutty professor. Sal is closing in fast, so Cecilia turns off her torch and hides for a little bit, until Sal passes her. She turns the light back on and squeals when she sees Gwen's dead body casually laying there. Cecilia keeps on traversing the labyrinth and finds a small hole with daylight shining through. She finally found freedom. As she crawls through the hole, Tadashi pulls her back inside and tears her shirt open to slice into her belly with a scalpel to make a C-section. Cecilia rams the Jesus nail into his neck, and he bleeds out for kill number 3. She climbs outside and finds herself in the beautiful Italian countryside. She falls to her knees and goes straight into labor. You can't see it, but you can hear the sound of the baby slip and sliding out and dropping on the floor. Now the camera won't show us what the baby looks like, but based on her reaction, his best features are not of the physical variety. She bites through the umbilical cord and walks away from the baby to collect her thoughts, but she quickly decides what the baby's future will be. She gets a big rock, walks back to the baby, lifts it above her head, and releases a primal screech as she makes baby jelly out of her recently born child, ending her kill count on 4. Now, as the movie ends, only one question remains. What did Cecilia actually give birth to? Sadly, I wish I could answer this question. But if the baby was really Jesus, the devil, or just a random normal baby was never answered by Sweeney or the director. There are little sprinkles throughout the movie, suggesting that it might have been a little Satan spawn, like the Bible verse left by Sister Mary, suggesting that Satan masquerades himself as an angel of light. Sister Gwen also drops the warning throughout the movie that her faith is slipping because God clearly has nothing to do with this baby. And finally, we only see a blurry baby in the background on a wide shot. But you can hear his heavy, unnatural breathing, which could mean it's evil, but also that it's deformed because of a failed experiment. But in the end, it's up to us, as the viewers, to decide if Jesus was reborn, or if the devil might have touched the earth. Even if it was just for a couple of seconds. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe so that you do not miss the next video.